Very nice.
Good morning,
Very-
afternoon,
yeah.
good evening. Today, Abhijit is introducing the spy world to us. Before we get immersed, let us first wish the birthday boys and girls. Like Milind
Ishan,
said, there are two of them.
Pushpita, Sangeeta, and Saida. Happy birthday to all of you.
Oh, Shaidas as well. I'm so glad. Nice.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
My
Ishan
God.
is here.
One
Pushpita
by
is
one, I think
here.
you can speak for a few words. Pushpita.
Yes. Go ahead.
I don't go ahead.
I guess it was my 70th this year. Even officially it might be 69. And I remember having asked my mom once, why did you all reduce my age by a year when you admitted me to school? And her answer was, we thought in case you failed and had to repeat a year. So I have decided to ignore that. And I guess as I step into the era of septuagenarian, as they are called, I'm very, very grateful for all the friends, the support, the good health, both mental and physical, and the whole IIM 16er batch and others, and especially the book club for bringing me back into and keeping me alive in the world of books. So thank you all so much.
Oh, of course. And we are also making you look younger, Pushpita, by the year.
Oh,
How
that's
much
what
credit
happens
you can
when you
take,
do
Milind?
too much maths.
Ishan, would you like to say something?
No, I think Monty's done the Oscar speech for both of us. But I love the way I'm looking here, all black and all that. So this is a good photograph. I'm going to take a screenshot and keep it on my passport. Yeah,
There's an art gallery behind you. You're looking
This is
good.
my room. This is the room I recognize. It's me that I don't.
Okay.
Everybody is looking younger.
Yeah.
Is Sangeeta here or Saida is here? Not yet?
Not yet. So proceed.
Okay.
Even Nidhi is not there today.
Yeah, she said she'll try to be here, but I don't see her yet.
Okay. Before we get into the serious business of spy world, Really a
Good
tough word
humor.
out there.
Spy on spy. Very nice.
What me worry, huh?
Awesome, Yanks. Very nice.
Yeah, go ahead, Milan.
Okay, so let me welcome all of you to this spy session. And before I hand over to the reader of the month, Abhijit, let me say a few words on the two authors who he chose to pick books from. So Graham Greene, 1904 to 1991, and John Le Carre, 1931 to 2020. As spy novelists, globally reputed, both were blessed with longevity. Graham Greene combined literary acclaim with widespread popularity and was nominated for the Literature Nobel Prize several times. Jean Le Carre, on the other hand, described as a sophisticated, morally ambiguous writer, wrote espionage novels like the one we read, and in the latter half of his life, also wrote novels like The Night Manager in 1993 during post-Cold War years, dealing with drug and arms smuggling in the world of Latin American drug lords. Being born almost 30 years apart implied for these authors very different contexts for their prolific writings. It resulted in a fascinating array of novels that are read worldwide. Greene often explored moral ambiguity and existential themes, while Le Carre specialized in espionage and political intrigue. While Greene's characters frequently grapple with personal dilemmas, Le Carre's characters are often shaped by their roles in the intelligence community. Consequently, Greene's prose is often lyrical, even introspective, while Le Carre's is more straightforward and more dialogue driven. The contexts, broadly, as I said, were quite different. Greene's works reflected the complexities of colonialism, while Le Carre's narratives are rooted in Cold War tensions. Perhaps coming out of their own lives, both authors delve into betrayal. But Greene focuses on personal betrayal more, while Le Carre examines betrayal in the context of state and loyalty. The drama that they developed in their novels lent itself to easy adaptations in cinema as well as television. Greene's novels have been adapted into classic films, while Le Carre's works have inspired numerous acclaimed television series and movies. Abhijit judiciously chose works by these talented authors that were difficult to choose between, and as a result, we have a tie when all of us voted on these books. Naturally, we have the unique outcome of both books being reflected upon in today's book club session, throwing up open the possibility that we actually get into a comparative discussion during the open session, depending on who read one of them and who, on the other hand, read both of them. So let astute spying on these books begin from all of us. And first, we have Abhijit as the reader of the month, who will now provide an overview of his theme.
So can I start or?
Yeah, Abhijit will provide an overview of his theme and the two books we have read for today. So please go ahead.
Okay.
Abdul, can you mute, please?
Yanks, why don't you mute him?
Go ahead with Span. We'll
Okay,
start.
thanks. Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for it's a privilege and an honor to be selected as the Reader of the Month. And so I actually gave three books as my selection. The third was The Coffin for Demetrios, which I think is also a very interesting one. Would highly recommend you guys to read it. But so this month's genre is Cloak and Dagger, Spies and Conspiracies. This is actually, I'm reading out from a write-up that I gave, and I will occasionally digress from there, but I'll try to be quick and, take about, 4 or 5 minutes? Is that the amount of time allotted to me, Milind, Srinivas? 4 to 5 minutes, right? Anyway.
Yes, that would be good, Abhijit.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes.
So spies have existed in early records of human history. Chanakya, also called Kautilya, wrote Arthashastra in 4th century BC India, which was a textbook of statecraft and political economy. It provided a detailed account of the collection, processing, and consumption of intelligence and articulated methods of covert operations. It was indispensable for maintaining and expanding the security and power of the state. So ancient Egyptians and Hebrews also developed sophisticated systems for the acquisition of intelligence. State-sponsored spying agencies were used by the Greeks and Romans, so spies have been around for thousands of years. The novels selected for this month are spy fiction, all set around pre-World War II and Cold War times. Some might say spy novels are somewhat an inferior art form, and this genre does not even matter. Well, my belief is that the first two books below would classify as great literature, but to some purists that may be a stretch. The third is just a compelling and unputdownable spy novel. That is The Coffin for Demetrios. It probably influenced John le Carre. None of these authors were Booker or Pulitzer Prizes, and I don't think the Booker Prizes was even then available in their times. But they have enthralled fans for generations. But still, 52 years after Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy was written, the main protagonists are still the same. Russia's spy agency is now labeled FSB instead of KGB, while the MI6 is enfeebled and plays an increasingly diminished global role, as Britannia no longer rules the waves. So I think John le Carre, who basically captures the art of spying and turned spy fiction into an art form, was exploring time-honored themes of, loyalty, deception, moral ambiguity, and ideological disillusionment, as basically Milind introduced us in his very brief overview. In fact, in his 2016 memoir, The Pigeon Tunnel, he writes of spy agencies as nobody can do corporate rot more discreetly than the spies. Nobody does better mission creep. Nobody knows better how to create an image of mysterious omniscience and hide behind it. And I'll read the last line. Nobody does a better job of pretending to be a cut above a public that has no choice but to pay top price for second-rate intelligence whose lure lies in the Gothic secrecy of his procurement rather than its intrinsic worth, which, is kind of very damning for the spy profession because we think of it as glamour and James Bond and beautiful women, but the actual reality is much harder. So I think the question is, did le Carre hold the entire business of spying and the idea of imperialism in contempt, implicitly acknowledging that their necessity even as their spies and agencies held the empire together? His memoir would indicate as such. Graham Greene's Quiet American was set in the early 50s Vietnam, when France was struggling to maintain its weakening colonial grip amid rising insurgency by the Viet Cong. The novel can be seen as a prescient warning of the later disastrous U.S. involvement to contain communism, and stands as a compelling and masterful critique of imperialism, right? Exposing the dangers of political idealism and foreign interference and complex local conflict. Both books read today as a grim coda to the geopolitical crisis and strategic dilemmas facing the current U.S. administration. Spying may seem to be a man's game, but there have been many female spies of distinction, and I'm just including all the women, ladies in our groups, saying, hey, you ladies have been good spies as well. So there was Mata Hari, allegedly a double agent during World War II, later executed by the French. And then, Noor Inayat Khan infiltrated into France during the World War II as a radio operator, a descendant of Tipu Sultan, and was key to maintaining radio communications with London and the French resistance. Ultimately betrayed and captured, she was executed by the Germans. So Netflix actually has a movie on Noor Inayat Khan. I think it's called Call to Spy, and it's basically stars, I think, Radhika Apte as Noor Khan.
Mhm.
Netflix has many shows and movies dedicated to female agents of extraordinary prowess and skills, vanquishing all their male adversaries. Let us return to hard realities. So, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, 1974, Jean Le Carré follows George Smiley, a retired British intelligence officer recalled to uncover a Soviet mole within the circus. The UK's Secret Service, suspected of being among 5 senior officials, the traitor has compromised key operations as Smiley quietly investigates the he pieces past failures, betrayals, and manipulated intelligence, including a dubious source known as witchcraft. His inquiry reveals the mole, who was motivated by ideological disillusionment. The novel explores themes of loyalty, deception, and moral ambiguity during the Cold War, portraying espionage as a subtle, psychologically complex battle rather than one of, daring do and action and guns and bullets and, fast cars. The real spying is obviously much harder and much more different. So The Quiet American is set in French-occupied Vietnam and narrated by Thomas Fowler. A wary British journalist, he becomes entangled with Alden Pyle, an idealistic American aid worker whose naive belief in third force leads to unintended violence. Both men are connected to the same Vietnamese woman, Phuong, creating personal tension alongside political conflict.
Mhm.
As Pyle supports covert operations that result in civilian casualties, Fowler is forced to confront difficult moral questions about neutrality, responsibility, and the limits of detachment.
Mhm.
The novel explores innocence, intervention, and the dangerous consequences of political idealism. I'll just spend 1 minute on just some thoughts that I think I had. So,
Sure.
basically, I was telling Milind is that one of the things that we don't know about, but there were so when I was in KGP, I used to spend a lot of time in the library reading books like, I don't know, I was just interested in everything except electrical engineering, but things like The Encounter and Paris Review and stuff like that. And later on, I realized that, or got to know that most of these literary and cultural magazines and all these magazines were all funded by the CIA, right? So that was basically CIA's cultural Cold War, where essentially they funded all these magazines, and they even funded things like Gabriel Garcia Marquez's kind of work, and even folks like James Baldwin. And the basic idea was essentially to show that capitalism, even though it was all against the Russian Cold War, right? All against Russia essentially. And even though capitalism encourages its dissidents and its people who are against capitalism to basically say that, hey, even though these guys are against us, we still encourage them, welcome them, and there's so much difference between them, but it doesn't matter. But actually, what is happening is most of these guys were actually, funded by the CIA, which is, I think, very interesting. And essentially, it says how the CIA actually infiltrated the world's literature. Now, if you think about it, it was possibly a very smart thing to do, right? I mean, even so, I mean, I right now at this stage, I don't know what else is CIA infiltrating, and it's very hard to think of the spook within us. But hey, this is life, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the end of what I had to say, Milind and
Great.
Srinivas. Take over.
Thank you. Thank you so much for a very comprehensive overview, Abhijit, and providing context with some current episodes and characters. And you also started very well, beginning with Chanakya. So this ROM review, as a comprehensive one, I think opens the doors to reflections on each of the 2 books that you talked about. Setting the ball rolling is Pushpita, who will now first reflect on Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. So please go ahead.
So you've read the question that Abhijit put to me as to why this book is widely regarded as the greatest spy novel, and it still feels timeless, and what aspects of it. Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy is not characterized by glamour, car chases, or fights, but by files, memories, and slow conversations in shabby rooms where the real action and reveal happens inside the minds of tired old men. It is the first of Le Carré's iconic George Smiley series of Cold War espionage. Like a true spy versus spy novel, it presents itself with complex plots, numerous code names for people and projects, using interestingly unique job titles like lamplighters, scalp hunters, etc. In fact, it took me a while to really get my teeth into the intricacies of the narration, by which time I was almost ready to have an artwork in my own study with yellow post-it notes, nails for locations, strings to represent relationships and connections, trying to figure out where the author was leading me to. I felt like a detective myself, trying to unearth the mystery and peel the layers. It took me a while sifting through pages to focus on what the book was really about: betrayal, loyalty, and the erosion of belief. Shrouded in the complexity of the narration was a deceptively simple premise: to identify a mole, a Soviet double agent, buried at the very top of British intelligence, the circus. George Smiley, recently forced into retirement, is quietly brought back to find him. The four suspects each carry a code name from an old nursery rhyme: Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, and then Spy. What follows is a patient sifting through old records, remembered conversations, and past humiliations until the truth assembles itself from fragments. Le Carré, who himself worked in British intelligence, writes from a place of authenticity rather than fantasy, and this lived experience gives the novel its flavor. Espionage is presented as bureaucratic, grubby, morally exhausting work populated by men who are lonely, compromised, and quietly disappointed in themselves and each other. This perhaps is one reason the book seems timeless. It focuses on something far more human and far more believable. The betrayal is at various levels: political, professional, and intensely personal. While Tinker Tailor has been acclaimed to be a timeless novel, I tend to think that the timelessness may not extend far beyond a few generations in terms of style. The pace is slow and it lacks action and glamour, but for those of us who are enthralled with spying and mysteries, we are quite patient and fine with someone just standing by the lamppost for hours or hiding behind a newspaper pretending to be wrapped with the news while keeping an eye on the movements of suspects or fixing secret meetings to exchange information. Those were the days when knowledge was power, because very few people had access to important knowledge. But in today's world, it could be a different story. The old-fashioned writing style and language was a beautiful ride into the past and left me fascinated with words like languorous, lugubrious, liturgical, punctilious, sententious, and more. Sometimes a quick dip into the dictionary helped. Sometimes the length of the narration demanded real concentration. The story moves through flashbacks, reconstructed conversations, and shifting perspectives, and the reader must hold many threads at once. There were moments I had to turn back a few pages to keep my bearings. The confusing hunt, however, leads to a slow assembling of clarity until the end reveals them all. There is a sense of disrepair and melancholy that runs through the book, fading of the once powerful Secret Service empire, a bunch of disappointed and flawed people who gave everything to a service and a country. Through the various interviews between Smiley and some of these characters, the reader is prompted to understand them rather than condemn them. Understand their complexities, draw a line between the good and the bad, and recognize that the personal and the political are not really separate. Even the mole's eventual justification is not greed, but disillusionment. Smiley's moral ambiguity paints the world in shades of gray rather than pitting a hero against a villain. Characters frequently do terrible things in the name of good, and Smiley is ready to accept and forgive. The key characters in are worth a little deeper sense of understanding. In the novel, Control, who is the dying old chief, narrows down the mold to 5 senior circus men and assigns them a code name from the rhyme Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Sailor. I won't go through each of them, but Percy Alanine was Tinker. Bill Hayden, who was the most brilliant, charismatic of the 5, was Tailor. Roy Bland was Soldier. He was the working class intellectual and a former Marxist academic. Toby Esterhazy was the poor man recruited by George in Vienna. And Smiley himself was also given a name Beggarman, but wasn't really referred to through the book. But he definitely had the art of listening at the front of his mind, of letting the primary incidents unroll directly before him, while another quite separate faculty wrestled with their historic connections. So, what is this human focus that makes this novel so timeless? I believe it is not just the core elements of human nature, but also the relationship between people, and that between people and their environment that could be relevant even today. The key theme that runs through the novel is one of betrayal. Betrayal of the country by the traitor, betrayal of husband by wife, friend by friend, ideal by reality of an organization to its people. The ordinary principles of trade, craft, and security have gone to the wall in this service. Compartmentation at all levels, too much regional backbiting stimulated from the top. Isn't this a common thread across a number of organizations, even today, that all of us have experienced at some stage of our lives? The one aspect of human nature that grabbed me the most was the relationship and interaction between Smiley and Carla. Carla was a legend and a mystery. The two met only once in the prison for interrogation, and yet each defines himself against the other. A strange intimacy between two men who recognize something of themselves in the enemy. The interrogation in the Delhi prison cell, where Smiley is attempting to persuade Carla to defect, is a one-sided verbal communication from Smiley's end that falls on complete and total silence at Carla's end. That silence is the heart of the whole relationship. Carla's stillness throws Smiley's own restlessness back at him. Smiley, by his own admission, is a fussy, variable, doubting man who lacks philosophic repose. Carla, on the other hand, is immovable. In trying to read Carla, Smiley ends up interrogating himself, even projecting onto Carla a wife, a marriage, a private grief to match his own. When Carla leaves the cell unmoved, but with Smiley's lighter, which was a gift from Anne, to George from Anne with all my love, Smiley thought it most appropriate to let him do so in those circumstances. In fact, he thought it expressive of the bond between them, distant yet intimate, each being the other's shadow and seeing in the other a version of themselves. This, to me, was the most timeless state of relationship, something we subconsciously experience every day, projecting ourselves onto the other. More than 50 years on, Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy endures not because it captured a particular moment in history, but because it looked past that moment into something more permanent. It asks what loyalty is worth, what belief costs, and who we become when both are tested. The spycraft is merely the field of study. The real subject here is the human being, divided, disappointed, and still somehow reaching for hope and something to be faithful to.
Great. Thank you, Pushpita.
Very
That
nice.
was a
Very nice,
very,
Mimti.
very effective reflection that I think resulted from the process you followed, somewhat of a circus of your own that you diligently set up to unfold intrigue, espionage against a Cold War backdrop. So thank you for that reflection.
Thank you.
Following Pushpita to reflect on the quiet American is Kenny, who will move us into Vietnam for his reflection. So go ahead, Kenny.
Hi. Hey everyone. So this is I don't have anything in paragraph form because I prefer to just write. It's something like I'm still trying to read the book and understand it for the fourth and fifth time. So if I did something, I put down anything on paper, it would have been like serving an uncooked biryani to all of you. So what I'll do is I'll explain the process, the recipe, and then when you guys read the book and when you're done, you tell me what you thought about it and how you summarized it. So anyway, so talking about Graham Greene, I think Milind very very succinctly said, in his write-up about both the two authors, that he's lyrical, and then various other kind of epithets. And Pushpita, your analysis of John le Carre's book, there are some paragraphs out of it which I could just take out, and they reflect exactly what The Quiet American is about, what the themes are. It's so much, but then they are as different as chalk and cheese. John le Carre and Graham Greene. So first of all, let's go into some of the things which struck me at the first read. It's a first person account. So there you really don't. You're slowly led into various aspects that the author wants you to know. It's something like The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, which is the first time I read a mystery or suspense book in the first person, and you know what happens at the end of it. The guy who's narrating is the murderer. So that's the first time it ever happened, and it was considered very underhand, of Agatha Christie to have done that. But anyway, so this is the first person account, and so here the thing is that he can take you. Greene mentions, Fowler mentions this when he's in the plane with the French pilot, French Vietnamese pilot, and then he's going up and down. They're doing vertical moves, to bomb. And then he says, I thought I felt like it was the Wembley Racer. So the Wembley Racer is a twin kind of roller coaster. You guys in America know roller coaster, but the Wembley one was a twin roller coaster in the 1920s, and it was during one of these expositions, and then it would go up and then come down, and then and there were two of them simultaneously together on parallel tracks. So something. I mean, in fact, when I'm reading the book, I feel like Graham, he's just taking on a roller coaster ride. He catches you by the scruff of your neck. He takes you here. Then and he starts off with this flat apartment in the Rue Catinat or whatever. And then from there goes straight to the police officer's office, and then there's this Quiet American, and Fong apparently called him Quiet, and Fowler also refers to him as Quiet, and then the police officer, knowing what the others didn't know that he was dead, said yes, very quiet indeed, and then that gives Fowler the clue that the pilot is dead, so which he has suspected because we also suspect he had a hand in it. So anyway, that's for the end of the book. So then after that, they go down this to the morgue, the mortuary, and then they see, there's certain observations of the mortuary, which again, Greene refers to later on, Fowler rather, and about the light and the slab coming out like a tray of ice cubes and all that stuff. It's just lyrical, everything. So anyway, you go up there and then you come down and you go into this various kind of things which are happening. Graham Greene he's not writing a spy novel so much as a bumbling kind of intrigue. He has written spy novels and he's very good at them, but this is more of a kind of intrigue which is something is just so you have to really read it to understand it. And now, it's not chronological, it's also not structured. I mean, there is a structure. It's divided into 5 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4. And each part is divided into a different number of chapters. And then each of the chapters is divided into Roman sections, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's big. So it's quite mind-blowing. But I just didn't get how he arranged the thing. But then, at the end of it, it's a bloody good read. And then you have to go back and read it again, and Graham's way of writing is that, he's constantly taking you over this roller coaster, a lot of action. And then in between, when there's no action, he's giving you so much of about some mental stuff, some mental stuff, psychological analysis, which is going on, references to, philosophy like Blaise Pascal and all this kind of stuff. And then lots of things which you don't know. It's only when you look up in the dictionary, then you understand, okay, that's what he meant, So you can go to the next page. Yeah, so there are all these themes, in fact, while talking about Green's style, he's economical with words, and he's, as I mentioned in the write-up, he's not Ayn Rand, he'll not use 5 words when 2 or 3 will do. And at the same time, you get get whatever he's trying to convey. If not the first read, the second read and the third read. So in this book, John le Carre's book is all about a little bit of, it's spy work, spycraft, fieldcraft, all that kind of intelligence craft, and then a little bit of personal stuff, enmities and, jealousies and all that stuff. But in the case of The Quiet American, there are so many themes, there's death. Death is a major theme. And directly, indirectly, the book starts off with death and then, of course, doesn't end. It ends in the same death, which is like chronologically moved there. And then it's about marriage, divorce, and sex. So some of these parts are a bit contrived. When Fowler's wife sends a letter to him, a long letter and this and that, and then, I can't believe that any estranged wife would bother to write such a deep letter unless she's also like a literary agent like Graham or a correspondent like Graham himself. Yeah. So anyway, I will forget her name, Anne. Yeah, something like that. So there's a lot of crime solving, police procedural, absolutely perfect stuff. The policeman is doing, and down to the thing where he catches Fowler on a lie. That he didn't meet Pyle the day before, or the day he died. The policeman has found Pyle's dog, then examined the dog has also been killed by the murderers. And he examines the paws of the dog and finds cement on it, and then he comes to the apartment where Fowler lives. And sure enough, there's one of the apartments is under renovation. So there is wet cement around, So he says, so indirectly he says, he tells Fowler, look, I know what you've done, but then he doesn't make a point of it. And so there is a lot of suspense, there's mystery, there's addiction, which is mainly a little bit of alcohol, but quite a bit of drugs. So opium, it was quite a revelation to me that, of course, Vietnam it was colonial. So, the British, I don't know whether they pushed opium in India. I think they did not. They pushed opium out of India into China, but at the same time, I guess it must have been legal here. But we don't read much about it, being openly sold or practiced. But in Vietnam in the 50s, it was, of course, it's a Chinese thing, So, and then there's a lot of anti-wars, anti-Americanism, anti-colonial. In fact, he's anti-everything. That's one of the beauties of this book. it's anti. So Christianity has got a soft spot, but this beautiful parody which he describes in Coward Die, which is an actual living thing. it actually existed when we visited Vietnam. The guide told us about a lot of these syncretic kind of religions, so-called religions, which they have in Vietnam.
Right.
And I think we can go on to the next page here. So, and then one of the features of this book is it is bilingual, So in the sense that he's in Vietnam, a former French colony. So the common language is not so much English as it is French. And so it is bilingual. So Graham Greene uses a lot of French words which throw us completely off our track. So we have to stop, we have to translate it and then understand what he's referring to. So as a non-French speaker, that kind of puts a break in the flow of the language, But maybe the second time around, they're very short phrases, So you remember them and you know what they mean. And his humor is fabulous because it's mostly irony and satire. There's
Mhm.
no direct kind of insult, but a lot of indirect, British
Mhm.
insults, and especially when the target of the insult is either usually the American, the whole of the American legation, I'd say, Joe and Warren, and even the two young girls were having their coffee. In fact, the only ones which he kind of favorably describes,
Mhm.
and the ones who leave the scene of the bomb blast, just in time because they've been warned. And these two girls, one of them actually looks at Fowler. He's there, and this elderly French lady who's also there in the coffee shop, and she's looking at them and then thinking, "Shall I tell them to get out of here or not?" Then she decides not to. And so anyway, so that's one of the marvelous pieces of
Mhm.
description in English. And in fact, the whole book. What I would suggest is that you guys just read the book
Right.
and read it once and then read it again. And you'll get thrown off by the anachronistic arrangement of parts. But at the end of it, it's really good. And I mean that's all I can say. And maybe one day I'll finish a proper written out paragraph form of review of the book.
Don't be lazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
This is good.
Well,
This
thank
is
you.
good.
Thank you, Kenny. I
yeah.
think you did a great job, as Rama says in the chat box, of developing the entire reflection out of a pressy reflection
Yeah,
writer.
but Milind, there's one thing which struck me a lot when you talk about. So Graham Greene he never got the Nobel Prize.
Right, right.
So there were some members of the Nobel Committee who were like
Mhm.
anti-Green for some reason.
Mhm.
He never got it. I mean, that's one of the
Yeah.
biggest injustices.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that, because he was nominated several times, but he didn't
Right.
make it for some unknown reason.
And
Yeah,
Winston Churchill got the prize. Just imagine. Can
I
you
know.
imagine?
Yeah, Winston.
Yes, yes.
So many people have got it.
Yeah.
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 But
Brilliant, I
this
think.
was really nice. I mean, this pressy reflection write-up style, Kenny, it opens up interesting variations for future
Yeah,
reflectors
thank you.
in
Right.
terms of how you can develop the whole reflection based on a few things that you say in the actual write-up.
Yeah,
Very nice.
Milind, there's one more thing I wanted to say. Initially when very earnestly, I tried to, so Pushpita was talking about having a soft board and putting post-it notes and string all over.
Yes,
So what
yes.
I try to do is I try to like highlight some portions, and at
Uh-huh.
the end of it, I found I highlighted the whole book.
Yeah,
Every word in the book had been highlighted,
yeah,
you can say. So it's impossible.
yeah,
So just read the book, yeah.
absolutely. No, I
So,
think
Milind,
Why was there, Kenny? Why was there a P? Why was there a P in
Pushpita's
the P?
technique for process was really very, very attractive. She had all kinds of, uh, paraphernalia, as I would call it, that she used to keep track of what exactly this guy is developing, because he has a very slow style, unlike
Including folding corners of the book, which I don't like to normally do.
Hey,
Yeah.
Milind, can I take 1 minute just to talk about like
Sure.
Graham Greene?
Please,
So
go
interestingly,
ahead.
I was debating between the other book of Graham Greene called Our Man in Havana.
Uh-huh.
And Our Man in Havana deals with this guy who's actually a vacuum cleaner or has a cleaning service in Havana, and he kind of start manufacturing intelligence for the British Secret Service because he's desperate for cash because he has a daughter with expensive habits. So he essentially takes photographs of his vacuum cleaners and sends it as secret weapons kind of things, and the British intelligence services just laps it up and so forth and so on. It's a satire on the whole espionage system. So I was debating between A Man in Havana and this one, and finally I chose this because I think this fit into the whole geopolitical kind of situation we are in right now. So, and just a comment that
Yeah, absolutely. That's more of a spy novel, a laughable
a laughable spy novel. Exactly. Thank you,
Very
Kenny. Great
nice.
job. Yeah.
This
Anyway, go ahead.
was really very rewarding, both the reflections as well as Abhijit's initial overview. So with that, let's go to what Srinivas has in store on the next slide.
But one thing I just wanted to say before we move on, we need to, I don't know whether you want to give away who is the mole, and Pushpita was really, really keen to do that.
Yeah,
No.
so in the
No,
open,
I said
I'm
we
not. I'm not.
mustn't.
Just kidding.
Abhijit, in
This
the
is
open
betrayal.
session,
Betrayal, Pushpita.
in the open session, somebody might come there, but
Yeah,
we'll
we
wait.
should discuss that the more.
No,
Yeah,
I
Right.
just said
we'll wait.
some of us may not have completed reading the book, so
Yes,
don't give it
yes,
away.
true.
My
Right.
my
No.
son always says, "Oh, don't spoil it. Don't tell me the end."
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
okay. That's okay.
I
That
wonder
was,
how many have seen the movie.
Yeah, I've seen the movie. Yeah.
Actually, I was going through the movie halfway. It's a 4 hour long movie on YouTube, and but somehow I even gone beyond 2 hours. So I will
Sorry,
finish.
Srinivas, take over. Yeah.
okay, yeah, go ahead, Srinivas. Let's get on. Okay, so I just want to say, time's been galloping and flying at the same time. Before we know it, 6 years have passed since we started with our book club on September 5, 2020, on Teachers' Day. During these 6 years, we have learned so much from each other after reading more than 60 books at last count. It's really been unforgettable, as Abdul called it, a meeting of the minds. So I find it fascinating that as a group we have accomplished this over these long years. Now, in this effort with all of you has been Srinivas, providing perennial audiovisual magic session after session. So, would you like to say a few words, Srinivas?
Yeah.
We're all dead.
Again short.
Five versus
To Abhijit. So now, I think it's when 6 years back when Milind broached me on this topic of starting a book club. I didn't know that how long we are going to last. That times were different. That was the COVID times. So everyone is at home and had all the time to kill. So it was a good idea. But in the wildest of our imaginations, we never thought it would last 6 years. So I think it's a credit to all of you. Each one of you participated enthusiastically, reflected, shared, and I think that all of us, including Milind and myself, gained a lot in these 6 years, what we couldn't gain before.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So with that, in the month of July, Milind has given a holiday to all of you. I think you have been working very hard. So once a year, he gives us summer vacation, being a good professor. And so we are going to have an anniversary special in the month of August. And the theme of that, because like I said, we didn't know how long we are going to last on the crease. While we lasted, not only we lasted, we hit a 6. So it is going to be out of boundary. So wait for the more details, which Milind and myself will share in a few days.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Srinivas. It's really a credit to all of us that we've come this far, and I hope we keep going for as many years, if not more. So with that, let's open the door on a very exciting open discussion. I'm sure a lot of you want to say good things and intriguing things about the books that you've read. Maybe one book, maybe both books. So go ahead.
Yeah, Sudeep, you want to say something?
No, I just want to tell you that the football was great, by the way.
Which match was it that you saw, Trivi?
Yeah, we went to LA and just got back. Yeah.
Good.
It was, I mean, I wish the United States were playing, but, you know.
So I have a comment, which is that whether it is Ricard, whether it is Graham Greene, there seems to be a period of disillusionment, and self-loathing. I don't know how to put it. I mean, they express it in different ways, but none of these guys seem happy about the world or themselves. And it's ironical because it's maybe linked to the end of the British Empire. And it it sort of links up to their irrelevance after being major players for 100 years. And I think both these books kind of seem to, the decadence of the British Empire, the decadence of the service that followed the decadence of the British Empire, because not all these guys, I mean, if any of you have seen this series called Slow Horses on Apple, Gary Oldman, it's a very well-made serial, and in fact, probably up for some awards also. I mean, there's a sort of despicable old fart who, but it's a serial that's catching huge imagination. It's called Slow Horses. I mean, they're all a bunch of losers, but they crack everything in the end. There seems to be some. It's not just about morality. Everybody's screwing everybody, including their country and their wives. It's also about a general feeling of decadence. So maybe it's just the period post-Vietnam, World War II.
Yeah.
I think, Ishan, that's a good comment, but we have to put it in context. Now, it's 50 years since John Le Carre wrote his book, and it's actually 70 years since the publication of The Quiet American. So these are almost, these are a couple of generations, at least a generation before us, before we started reading. And so we can't, and Graham Greene is totally anti-imperial, he's anti-everything, like I mentioned. So if he's disillusioned in this, he's disillusioned about sex, he's disillusioned about politics, he's disillusioned about democracy, he's disillusioned about everything, so, and it's not that. So it's, an author creates a character, the character has to be that character. So, the depth of the character is what tells you the kind of the art of the novelist, the imagination and the skill with which he brings out the stuff.
So what you're saying
Yeah,
is,
I think I just wanted to add, Ishan, I just wanted to add that what you started to say about the canvas that these two authors chose, or the context of the Cold War or colonialization, were sort of bleak canvases.
Very bleak.
They wrote the books against those bleak canvases.
But to Kenny's point, I think the reason why the books and the movies have survived time and geography is because of the craft. I think the craft is excellent. And I think the craft has made it survive more than essentially the theme.
Yeah.
I thought that, one aspect of this book which struck me as unusual was that everybody seems to come out a loser.
Yeah.
Okay, and maybe that is a part of the identification which Ishan is talking about, because all of us maybe identify with losers.
Not the Quiet American.
Winners, but we identify with losers. So
not the Quiet American. No, the Quiet American ends on an upbeat
I didn't
note.
read the Quiet American. I'm only talking about.
So Fowler and Phuong, they have a perfect life. His stay in Vietnam is extended. He's got his divorce from his wife. Only Pyle is dead. Pyle is dead because he did a lot of he did unconscionable things. So he was eliminated.
No, I'm only talking about Tinker Tailor.
Tinker Tailor.
But you see, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, that also was the Cold War. Don't know if you guys remember this Burgess, MacLean, Philby, Blunt. All these guys, the Cambridge Five, who basically betrayed the British Secret Service and defected and did enormous damage, right? So I think John Le Carre was also thinking of that as a canvas.
But that would have been later, wasn't it?
Pardon?
Wasn't that later?
No, that was in the 50s.
Actually, to Abhijit's point, in the introduction that John Le Carre writes to the book, he mentions that Kim Philby, I think, was the name.
Kim Philby,
He betrayed these guys, and that's how Le Carre had to leave the MI6. So that was really at the root.
Yeah, this history of Kim Philby's father was actually an Arabologist, which means that he basically was the first guy to open up Saudi Arabian oil fields to the Arab American Oil Company. So this colonialism thing, which we basically is now completely shrouded, we don't even know about it, is essentially, centuries long, right? So that's the bleak, and it's basically, exploitation to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And it's also, linked with the morals of the aristocracy and the Secret Service. It's that whole, to me, the word that comes across very sharply is overall decadence.
Yeah. Yeah, let's give Pushpita a chance. She's
Yeah.
patiently holding up her hand. Yeah, go ahead.
When you talk of the very word decadence is interesting, because what comes to my mind is it's the cycle of life, isn't it? It's life is literally like a sine curve. There are ups and there are downs, and every generation and every phase goes through its ups, and there will be a phase of decline. I'm sure our next generation is looking at the world around them. There's war here and war there and war there and everywhere, and there is, I'm sure, a sense of disillusionment in them. It's just the canvas is different, but the process that the human life goes through can still be the same. It's just a different context, but I think as we go through life, there will be ups and there will be decline, and that's what the whole at a bigger picture, that's what Kali Yuga is about.
Yeah.
There'll come a time when there will be a decline.
Yeah, which is why I was very intrigued by how Abhijit started with Chanakya of all the people, and then I thought of Machiavelli. And I said, these are the kinds of people who were looking at their enemies very critically all the time. And that is at the heart of saying, the price of liberty is eternal vigilance. You have to be vigilant about what the enemy is doing, what the other side is doing. And that makes your intelligence stronger and gives you a basis for acting. And which is why foreign policy as exercised by various countries in today's world is so disappointing. There's nothing strategic going on. There's just self-interest and patriotism. Yeah, Raja, go ahead.
Yeah, first, I have to admit that I did not read the books, but came and joined anyway. So my apologies for that. And please don't reveal them all. Because after the reflection that I heard, I really want to read the book.
I think
so
none of us know. None of us knows. Yeah, none of us knows.
Okay.
After reading
All
the
right.
book, yes.
All right.
Don't worry.
Okay. That makes it even more interesting. So you can pick your own, I suppose. But yeah, so I was thinking, as I listened to Monty's, reflection, I was, and when you talked about timelessness and compared it to today's context and so on, I was wondering what any of you who read across these books thought about the concept of spying itself. I mean, did you get the feeling that there were certain standards back then, things that you do or you don't do, some kind of an honor system across, among spies? And the content, in today's world, almost, anything goes, it seems, right? The degree of infiltration that you have these days, and what you do with the information that you end up gathering as well, right? And, in what ways do you put it to use? But did you get a sense that, in those days, at least in those times, spying was something that, was done for a certain purpose, but it was above a certain level, right? Not going below that. It's curious about what some of you thought.
Well, Raja, I think if you look at all of Jean Le Carré's books, I think the idea is that you start with a good purpose. You start with patriotism, loyalty, service to the nation, service to the people. But over time, he basically, everything, it gets shattered, right? And that's I think that's also and I think that's a universal theme, right? In many, many situations, right? I mean, even if you look at, say, many other situations, and basically you start with good intent. As they say, the road to hell is paved with good intent, right? So I don't know whether that answers your question, but I think many of these things are basically timeless. I think the canvas was essentially the Cold War, but I think he's talking about human beings, about commerce, about betrayal, about interests, and disillusionment, which meant ideological disillusionment, right? He was very disappointed. He liked the idea of, like, many of these this guys, like what I was talking about, Burgess, Philby, and all. Some of them are gay people, right? So essentially, gay people were persecuted, right, in the British, in the United Kingdom. And for example, that many of these guys actually were gay and they were suppressed, and this was a way of getting back at the system. And they all came from elite families, right? They were all like purveyors to the queen and this and that and whatever, right?
So going back to the original question, I mean, I think spycraft is necessary in today's, without intelligence, how are you going to negotiate a treaty or, wage a war or all the things that are just part of realpolitik, right? So,
So there's one thing, that you must remember that spying
You can
is
always
an
tell
attack.
real estate developers, Ravi.
Yeah,
Just
can
wait till-
he let Rama say what he
Yeah,
wants to
yeah,
say?
sure.
Yeah, Rama, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking that the books kind of tend to channelize us down one path. But if you just build on the previous question and expand it a little bit, you can really look at it in about 3 or 4 dimensions. There's one is the classic general intelligence that we have, country to country, a bit like what Thruvi was talking about. But, right at the up, I would also talk about commercial intelligence. The stuff like, for example, what we gather that China has done in terms of getting commercial secrets on whether it's high-speed trains or semiconductors or something of that sort. Then the second level is on personal related. How is it that the Israeli spying unit, the Mossad and Shin Bet, they've got one very secretive unit which can hack into everybody's kind of things in Iran so that they can have piecemeal, say location of people and then hammer them. So that's what I'd call the technical intelligence. And then there is the physical intelligence, which is the trade craft. And as Thruvi has rightly said, you can't escape it because that's a real politic. But overarching right across over there is, to some extent, it veers between the mad spy versus spy, as Yangs put, to the truly patriotic guys who kind of are doing things for themselves. And in between somewhere are the corrupt bunch, like Raw had Rabinder Singh, who used to be a colonel in the Indian Army. Then he escaped through Nepal and went away, and then ostensibly was bumped off in some place in the Midwest. So invariably it will always be the same. But when you look at somebody like, say, Mossad or the ISI, you see certainly a very high level of professionalism in fulfilling their country's interests, which should not be forgotten in this whole canvas that we're talking of spying.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
I agree. Just very quickly reacting to Rama's point, I find that, we all over the world talk about the effectiveness of a spy organization like Mossad, but we don't know the identities of spies who have done exceptional work. One exception in the recent past is only names like Ajit Doval that, we know of as a person.
Actually, if you see, there is a very interesting book called The Spy from Israel. And I read this, when we were at IMC around that time. And this guy was actually the guy who penetrated Syrian intelligence so much so that he was very close to the Syrian chief of staff. So in the 67 war, he basically gave everything away. And that's why Israel was able to conquer the heights, the Golan Heights. And he was betrayed, and then he was executed in a public square, hung. And then his body, the Israeli government is still trying to get the body back, or has got the body back recently.
There's also a movie.
There's a movie, yeah. Netflix has a movie.
Yeah, there's a movie.
Netflix has a multi-part movie called The Spy, starring Sacha Baron Cohen as the spy.
Sacha Baron Cohen is
called The Spy. Yeah, you should see that.
Okay, I don't know about the movie, but I've just seen the book. The book is actually brilliant.
No, the movie is very well made.
It's a 4 or 5 part movie. Yeah.
I see. Okay. So
it's a 5-part movie or a serial.
He was very, very into the whole place. He married a Syrian woman.
Yeah.
Right.
Into the top echelons of Syria. And on the other side, if you even see a movie like, which was that movie which had the Kashmiri family that was spied for India, based out of Pakistan. And
Ghazi.
the claim was
Ghazi.
Actually, it was not Ghazi. What they found was they found the timing of when the Pakistan Air Force would bomb the airfields in India. And that is why the Indian Air Force was able to disperse its aircraft. The movie talked about the Ghazi, the submarine, but the actual kind of gupshup is that they did penetrate the Pakistan Air Force and they did find out exactly when the bombing would take place and help.
Speaking in Rama, speaking in general terms, someone asked whether it is a good thing or bad thing. Intelligence is good, but every intelligence has a betrayal at the other end. There's a traitor, and treason. It has always been a capital crime. Even today, spying is a capital crime. Even I think in America. I mean, it has always been, so you're good on this side, but there has to be some bad on the other side, and vice versa.
So you saw also with the Israeli spy in America, Daniel Pollard, they locked him up, and multiple times, it's only when Trump came that Israel got Daniel Pollard back, but he was locked up for a long time because it gave us so much secret. So you're exactly right. We don't know whether it is money that motivates or patriotism, but it happens at both ends, that one man's gain is another man's loss.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And he was a reflector today.
So with that 2 cents, gone to 3 cents, I'm going to shut up and listen.
Okay. Thank you, Rama. So anybody else who wants to?
Well, I think
just 2 comments.
Abdul? Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Abdul.
One is going back to the theme of disillusionment, decadence.